Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this third day of Reinvention Summit Canada. We are thrilled to host you again, my colleague Sonia Di Mauro and myself, Danielle Silverman. We're here today to welcome three amazing guests, three wonderful speakers, share their reinvention stories with us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, unless I've forgotten something. No? Okay. Our first speaker is Julia O'Grady, who is from the Ottawa region. Julia has really big ideas, fresh ideas. She's got a proven track record in the events industry, where she always exceeded client expectations. She was always pushing her company, the ITM events, and her team to achieve greater heights. Julia's specialized skills give her a unique advantage in the events industry. She's rational, detail-oriented. She implements decisions and policies that ensure that the seamless production of every event she manages. She's known as a disruptor, and she shakes up the status quo to refresh stale events and take them to the next level. All of which, of course, make her a natural-born reinventor. But we all know the events industry has been completely disrupted, even decimated by COVID-19. So let's hear how Julia has reinvented herself and her company in the face of this disruption as she talks about cash for life, the fear that pushes her forward. Please welcome Julia O'Grady.
Welcome, Julia.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. It's so fun to hear my bio read out like that. I've never had that kind of intro before. That's fun.
Enjoy.
Yes,
Right.
I will.
Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. She's all yours.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. As an entrepreneur, if there are any other entrepreneurs in the room, I'm sure you can totally understand that on the best of days, you feel like you are in a constant state of failing and picking yourself up, failing, picking yourself up. So when Sonia and Danielle approached me because they thought my story was inspirational, I felt for a little bit of relief for a moment that maybe I'm not failing quite as bad as I often think I am. So it's an absolute honor to be here today. And my hope for today is that I can inspire even just one person to take a leap and just do something that you can feel to your core is the right thing for you, because that's how I got started. And that's what is pushing me to continue to do what I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my story. And I'm actually going to ignore the chat, so just so that it doesn't distract me and I don't want to get off track and forget any special details, but I will make sure that there is time at the end that I can come back and answer any questions and we can address anything that might come up at the end, okay? All right, so as Danielle mentioned in my bio, it says that I am a disruptor, and that's, although my mom would probably think that's really funny because I was a really quiet, shy kid, but as an adult, I've grown into that and I'm excited by that. So I have reinvented myself multiple times. So my most important reinvention story that I'm going to tell you today is how my fear of having a cash for life job pushes me to stay focused on ensuring that my event management company succeeds. No matter what is happening in the world, I refuse to give up. I'm sure most of you can relate. We're all raised to believe that a cash for life job is the way to go. And at no fault of our parents, right? That's how they were raised. And that was the way to make sure that you had a pension and you had holidays and you had benefits, all of those things. But what we often don't realize is that that is often not enough for some people, like myself. I got the cash for life job. My mom, after I had my first daughter, my mom said I needed a real job. And she'd been in the federal government forever. So she sent me on training. And by the time I was finished my maternity leave for my first daughter, I had found myself in a job in the federal government. And I was so proud. I went to work every day wearing my cute little lanyard and my little security pass. And I was proud of the work I was doing. I was learning, I was innovating, I was, doing all the things that inspired me and excited me. The most important part is that I had secured a cash for life job, right? At the age of 23, I had a cash for life job. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my lifetime. I had security for my family. We had benefits. Everything was going to be okay, right? Life set up perfectly, just the way that my parents had envisioned it would. By the age of 28, I'd worked my way up to assistant director. I was living the dream until I wasn't. I had a job, well, as are most government jobs, is I have a job that I can move from department to department and do the exact same job. So when I started to feel a little about my job, I decided that's fine. I'll just move to another department and it'll refresh my excitement. So I did that. I moved from department to department, trying to find my place and trying to reignite that energy I had when I first started in my cash for life job. Funny story, it turns out that there's the same red tape in every department. There are still all those people that should have been fired years ago who are still there at their cash for life job. And I am still being told, no matter what department I'm in and no matter what position I'm in, that it's probably just easier if we just continue to do things the way we've always done them. For all you entrepreneurs out there, I'm sure that that's a word that to you is like nails going down the side of a chalkboard, right? That feeling inside me, why would you continue to do something that clearly isn't working just because it's easier to do it that way? Oh, now picture this. At the age of 31, 2 young daughters at home. I'm sitting in the boardroom, my team of 20 some people sitting in front of me, and I announced to the room, I'm resigning. The room went silent, jaws dropped. Who in their right mind leaves a cash for life job at such a young age with 2 young kids at home? I do. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was done. It didn't matter. All those promises of years of employment and years of pension and all of those things meant nothing anymore. I was done. My husband had secured his cash for life job as a firefighter. So this was my opportunity to jump and do something that I wanted to do, something for me, something that felt like a better fit for who I am. He now had the benefits and the holidays and the pension and all of those things that would help to make sure that our family was secure. So what did I do? I left and became a consultant. Oh, what was I thinking? So essentially doing the exact same job, but I thought it would be easy because there's extra money and I had no responsibility. All I had to do was show up, do my job, and I could walk away from all the other stuff that was making me crazy. We had a nice house, we had fancy cars, we went on trips all the time. It still wasn't enough. Before I knew it, I could feel that same feeling starting to come in. Then one day my husband came home from work and told me a story about a call they'd gone on. They get called to a VSA, which is vital signs absent. They go into the building where this call came from. And there in her cubicle is a woman who died at work, right there, just died in her cubicle alone. The team is there, my husband's team is there, and they're, getting the body ready to move and, doing what they have to do. And my husband happens to look over to her desk and notices that on her desk, she had one of those desk calendars. And there she had that Friday. So let's say, for example, this was on the Monday. That Friday, the date was circled with the word retirement written on it. She was destined to retire just days from the moment that she died in her cubicle. That story changed everything for me. No more. I am not doing this. That is not going to be my story. Fast forward a couple years, and I still hadn't quite made a change, but I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I heard a conversation about how the career that you should have, that's often the struggle, right? You feel like you're meant for more and you should be doing something else, but you don't know what that is. Well, in this case, I had heard that the career you should be doing is the one thing you would do for free. That saying kept playing in my head. And then one day I'm having a conversation with a colleague at my government office. And I bring this conversation up and we're having the discussion. And she says to me, I tell her what it is. And she says, oh, you know what I would do? I would move to the Caribbean and open a bed and breakfast. And as I'm listening to her talk, I'm thinking, okay, what is it for me? What is my thing? And I'm thinking, you know what I love to do and that I do all the time is plan events. I either volunteer and I plan events, or I'm planning them for my family and my friends. And we're not just talking like a regular house party. Like we put on big events for our friends and family just because I love doing it and it's fun. So that was it. Within a 20-minute conversation, I changed my mind. This is what I was going to do. This is my future. This is how we're going to make it happen. And I went home that night and started a website. 10 years later, here I am. I own an event management company. Now, unfortunately, it didn't quite snap like that. And it's been a journey, but it's a journey that I'm so proud of. Now, let me show you what 10 years as an entrepreneur looks like, or at least what it's looked like for me, but I'm sure any other entrepreneurs in the room can agree. As much as I would love to say that my success journey has been this visual on the left of success, a nice straight line with a goal from where I started to where I end up getting, when in fact, it looks a lot more like the one on the right, where I am kind of, moving forward, going loop-de-loop all over the place, and eventually someday I hope to find my way out on the other end. I started the company with no plan, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter how I was going to make it work because all I knew was that I needed out. I needed a change. I needed to make this work. And I was convinced everyone would buy from me because why wouldn't they, right? It should be that easy. My husband and I fought all the time about my company. I remember one day being in the grocery store and I picked up I don't know if you call it a head of celery, anyway, a package of celery, and he freaked out about the price. And I knew instantly in that moment, it had nothing to do with the price of the celery and everything to do with the fact that he felt that my company was hemorrhaging money. Despite knowing deep down that he was right, I refused to give up. I needed the change in my life so bad that there was no way that this was going to end. I just had to pivot and fix what was going on and what the problem was and make sure that I was headed in the right direction. I continued to refuse to believe that my life was meant to be spent sitting in a cubicle 5 days a week, working for weekends and hoping for retirement. Like everyone else, I kept a reminder in my head that I have one shot at this life and I am determined to do it in a way that I enjoy and that excites and inspires me. Now, 10 years later, I still have my government consulting job because unfortunately my event management company doesn't make enough for me to walk away from what that consulting job pays me and pays our family to that. But that's okay because it's not about the money. I often get asked by people who do focus on the money, why don't I just give up? It's a simple answer to me. To them, it doesn't seem like it because to them, it's all about the numbers. But to me, it's because this journey in my life is about so much more than the money. It's about my happiness. My husband and I had a discussion one night about how frustrated he was with the company and that this plan diverted from our plan, our family plan. And he said to me, but honey, don't you want to have a nice house? And don't you want to be going on trips all the time? And don't you want to be driving a nice car? And I remember going to bed that night and thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've let my family down. It was selfish of me. Why would I have done this? I need to fix this. This needs to be better. And then I woke up in the morning and had a thought. Wait a minute. I have all of those things and I'm still not happy. Clearly the money and those material things do not mean anything to me and they do not make a difference in my life. My life is about what I feel inside and I want to feel inspired and excited and want to jump out of bed every day and be able to scream from the rooftops that I love what I do. So every year I continue to work away at my business. The first 6 years of my business were a very expensive hobby, and I'm okay with admitting that now. The last 4 years have been profitable years. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done. I'm so proud of the pivots I've made. I'm so proud of the failures I've made, because those failures taught me how to be better and taught me how to move forward and how to get to where I am and where it is I want to go. So every year I promise myself that this will be the year that I get to quit my government consulting job forever, because my event management company is going to be everything I need in order to sustain my family financially. Before COVID-19 hit, I was already in a transition point for my company. I had to let an employee go at the end of 2019 because we just weren't making enough money in order to employ both of us. And then once COVID-19 hit, then I had to let my virtual assistant go. And if you've ever had a virtual assistant, you know how horrible that is. That's like cutting off your right arm. I really had grown to count on her, and now I had to let her go because now with COVID-19, there are clearly no jobs coming for event directors anytime soon. This would be the easiest time for me to walk away from my company. No one would blame me. No one would think I failed. I would just vanish into history with all the other event management companies, and everyone would say, it's okay, you couldn't control what happened in the world. But if I do that, what that means is I now have to step back to my cash for life job. And that story of my husband finding that woman in that cubicle rings loud in my head and causes me so much anxiety that there is no way I am going to let that happen. So I started the new year, I started 2020 with a new lease on life, because I had let my employee go. Not that that made me happy. I miss her terribly every day. However, it took the pressure off me, because now I didn't have to worry about payroll. Now I didn't have to worry about, what types of events anyone else wanted to do. I could get back and focus on my company and focus on me and what it means for me and what I want to get out of the success of that company. I have a few great events that I'm still working on. So that's great. It keeps my hands in everything that I've got going on. But really, I'm spending all of my time right now pivoting, focusing, getting ready, and doing it right. Because God knows I didn't start the company with all the processes and systems in place. But now with more knowledge and more experience, I can do that. My dream from day one, if I had not rushed to just start a company, I would have written a business plan and, done all those things right and gotten serious and clear about my vision for the company. But now I get to do that. So now I get to focus on creating the company the way I always envisioned it would be. And what that means to me is I want to take myself away from the day-to-day management of the events. And I want to be the leader of an amazing team. I want to have this amazing group of event directors behind me who are doing what they love, right? People who live and breathe events every single day, but who really actually don't really care to be owning their own company. They don't like that part of the business. Whereas I love that part of the business. I love the marketing. I love the networking, even though I suck at it. I love, all of those pieces about running a company. And I want to be the face of the company, but I also want to be that driving force behind the team that keeps them on task and focused, so that all they have to do is worry about our clients and worry about the event. That excites me. So that's what I'm working on right now. While things are quiet, while I have time, I am building my company almost from the ground up again, but this time with so much more knowledge and experience. Over the last few weeks, I've watched colleagues close their doors and find work in other industries, and it's so heartbreaking to watch, because we know the events industry likely will not be back for a long time. A lot of them have gone virtual, and that's fine, and some of us will get work out of that, and that's great. But for the most part, it's just not going to be the same for a little while. I am pretty certain that my husband was kind of hoping I was going to follow suit as I was telling him all these stories of people closing up shop and moving on to other industries. I'm sure he was thinking, oh, yay, maybe Julia will move that way too. But instead, like I said, I've ramped it up tenfold. When this pandemic ends, I am going to be ready. When live events come back, I am going to be ready. And I know this is the right time. I can feel it. I literally wake up thinking about it all the time, is that I know this is the right time, because right now my colleagues are retreating, right? It's just too much. Running a business is hard to begin with, and then adding this on top of that is it's too much. So this is the perfect time for me to create my vision and to make that come to life, because those individuals, I'm sure, don't want to have to start over. But they love events. They love what they do. So this is their opportunity to jump on a team that will already have all the structure, and they don't have to do the marketing. They don't have to do the RFP bidding, because those are the pieces I love. And those are the parts that I'm going to do for them. And all they have to do is show up to work and do what they do best. I'm excited about this reinvention, because if I ever had to work for someone again, this is the style of company that I would want to work for. A company where people feel heard and appreciated, and they have an opportunity to have a voice. That excites me. That excites me, being able to give people innovation and tools to do the best that they can do. Now I'm getting tight on time, so I am going to skip ahead in my story a little bit here. Quick, I won't get into details, but essentially last year I was diagnosed with being on the verge of a complete mental breakdown. Again, it would have been another time for me to just walk away from my company. No one would have blamed me. No one would have said I failed. They knew I worked hard, and that was why I was in the mental position I was in, was because I had worked so hard. But again, I refused to give up. Over the last year, I had an image come up on my screen while I was searching social media, and this is what came across my screen, and it literally changed my way of thinking forever. Success is a journey, not a destination. The doing is often more important than the outcome. Read that again. Success is a journey, not a destination. The doing is so often more important than the outcome. Isn't that incredible? That quote it just fires me up, because it's so true. What are we working for? Like, what is that end point? We don't know. You can't know what that end point is. Life is about this part. It's about how much fun and how much we enjoy the piece in between where you start and where you think you're headed. You have no idea where that path is going to take you, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're having fun and you're not succeeding, and you are having fun and you are learning and you are trying new things. That's what life is about. And thanks to that saying, that is what this is about for me now. This is not about the money. This is not about whether someday I get to be the event director behind the Calgary Stampede or the Junos, although that would be nice. Essentially, what this is about is me enjoying my time on this earth, doing things that inspire and excite me. So go out there and do that. If you have that feeling in your stomach that there is something out there meant for you, something more, do it. You get one shot here. Do not waste it being stuck in a job, stuck in a relationship. Anything that's holding you back, get away from that and move forward. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Julia. Woohoo! We've got some really nice comments and questions on the chat. Danielle?
Yeah, so we're getting comments that people are loving your energy and really enjoyed your presentation. We have a comment here from Jason who says he hears what you're saying, and he feels he's still on the ground floor trying to get started, but the fear of failure and letting his wife down makes him hesitate.
Oh, I can so relate to that, Jason. That is, my fear of failure literally is, yeah, it's paralyzing. I totally understand that, but I encourage you to work on that and get past it, because when you do, this whole other world opens up, and it is the best feeling in the entire world. And as far as letting your wife down, again, I totally relate. I constantly feel like I'm letting my husband down. As you heard in my story, right? We argue about things that are important to him, but they're not so important to me, and that makes it really difficult for us. But if something I learned actually just recently, if you have confidence in yourself, your spouse will have confidence in you as well. So if you stand up to whatever it is you're fearing, she will stand behind you and push you forward and root you on. I promise.
And that's a good point. AJ also mentioned planning.
Yeah.
So, you know, having a plan and present that confidently, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What I picked up from your talk, Julia, was a bunch of things. So Danielle and I are, you know, reinvention is something that comes natural, right? Danielle and I have been studying sort of the art and the science of reinvention, which is mindset, tool set, skill set. And you mentioned all of those in your talk, and how you identified your reinvention started by what has been going well in your business, what you're passionate about, what your strengths are. And so that's where you should start, really, because that's where the confidence comes in. It's like, I've done that before, that really worked. Yeah. This is what my clients really appreciated about the work I did. And then you took that as the seed to propel you into your reinvention. So congratulations, I really enjoyed it. I love your straight shooting talking. It was really great. Any other questions for Julia?
We have a comment from Heather who says, your story, Julia, is a testament to resilience, persistence, and determination. Thanks for sharing your journey. Very much appreciated your reminder to follow my true path.
I love that, Heather. I'm so glad to hear that.
And then great presentation also from AJ. Absolutely, Julia, Sonia's comments are completely relevant, because that really is what reinvention is all about. It's not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's about taking what you already have and using that, reimagining that in a new way. So congratulations. And all of us who count on the events industry for our livelihood are really rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know where to find me when it's time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No, it's another comment. Perfection is an illusion. We are together on that journey. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah. So our next speaker is, and now for something completely different, as they say, Duncan McLaughlin. Duncan is a Canadian who is now living in Paris, or just outside of Paris. He is an experienced international leader in organizational development, in human resources transformation, and in talent management. He believes that having a positive impact on people and organizations is what drives his work attitude. His calling to make a positive difference in the lives of others grew out of his personal experience as an AIDS survivor. In 1990, he was diagnosed with AIDS and told to prepare for death. Instead, he set out on a journey to overcome AIDS at a time when there was no roadmap for recovery. His journey of research, experimentation, and learning led him to develop a comprehensive model and practice of health and well-being. He literally transformed himself from an AIDS patient to a community developer, advocate, and leader. And since 1990, he's been sharing his knowledge and working with others to improve health outcomes in marginalized communities across Canada and beyond. Today, Duncan will be sharing his life story with us in How I Survived AIDS, Life Lessons for Reinvention in a Pandemic. Welcome, Duncan.
Well, it's fantastic to be here with all of you, and thanks to those of you who are joining from all over today. Before beginning, I want to acknowledge that some of us in Canada may be living, even though this is a virtual event, may be living in unceded Indigenous land. That some of us may be slower in responding in chat, may have differences in our ability with technology. We may be dealing with kids or pets or a whole bunch of things. I just want to welcome everyone. And I'd like to acknowledge that today is a very special day. It's Giving Tuesday now, which is a global day of giving and unity. it's inspired as a response to what we're all living through with COVID-19. So it makes sense, I think, and very appropriate that we're having the summit on this day of giving. I'm here to give to you, but I'm also here for an exchange. And should you wish to continue to share ideas, comments, or questions beyond my time here, please reach out and connect with me. There's two ways to do this. Appreciativeheart.com is the website. And if you are interested in receiving a monthly journal called Reinvent, there's a new issue coming out soon that's free. Just sign up for it. That will include insights, inspiration, tips, and resources about reinvention. And it'll include additional content and resources from this talk today. There's also through LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you hit the connect or contact me button at appreciativeheart.com, you'll find my page easily there. I'd love to join your network and support you however I can. I'd like to do a little check-in now. I'm trying to imagine that we're in a large room together, but I'd like to do a little check-in. And the check-in begins with a question, and the question is, how confident do you feel right now? How confident do you feel to make either the reinvention that you are dreaming of, or that you are in the process of, or that you're planning? How confident do you feel today? We'll do this on a 1 to 10 scale. So 1 is I'm not feeling confident at all, and 10 would be I'm feeling super confident. Please enter that in the chat if you would. I'm curious to see where everyone's at today. So again, the question is, how confident do you feel right now to make the reinvention that you imagine, dream, or are planning?
So go ahead and write in. So we're getting 9s and 10s, Duncan, and 8s, 5, 1, 5. Okay, we're getting another 5, a lot of 8s, 10s.
There's no, this is whatever it is for you. I imagine Julia has inspired us all, so that's good.
Got a 7.
If you're at a very high level, that's awesome. I hope that what I can do is support that energy and confidence that you already and we'll see at the end where we are with that. The second question that I have for you, and then that's it, just 2 questions. The second question, I'm really curious to know when you think back over the last few weeks of COVID-19, what strength has emerged for you? What strength have you appreciated and recognized in yourself as you think back over the last few weeks? So what strength have you recognized in yourself?
Go ahead and write 1 word in the chat. Adaptability.
Yes, so we're determination, adaptability,
Resilience,
creativity,
patience.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah. Self-confidence. Awesome. Contentment, no matter what the circumstances. Adaptability. Revise. Caring for others. Thank you. So all of us have been challenged, and all of us have our own stories of reinvention. Thank you for your responses there. My purpose is to make a positive difference in what I can offer you in the time we have today and beyond. I hope that, but really, I hope it inspires you, but more than inspires you, I hope that I can help you move towards the next action step for you, whatever that may be, in your reinvention journey, in your reinvention dream, your reinvention idea. So as we go through the next 20 minutes together, I'd like you to keep in the back of your mind, what positive action step could you take now in the next, let's say, in the next day? What is a step, no matter how small, what is a step that you could take to move yourself, to leverage a strength, maybe one of the ones you identified here in this period of COVID-19, but what is the strength that you can take and apply that to the reinvention that you want to make? And that can be everything at all, even if it's a step towards planning to make a change. So I'll leave that with you. It's for you. It's a piece of self-reflection, but I want you to keep that in mind as I share some of my story with you, and let that be hopefully an outcome of our time together here and in the context of the rest of the summit. Beverage time. I'd like to just give you a quick outline. One of the things that's amazing to me is how AIDS is still today such a present reality. And the number of people who are expected to die from AIDS this year is about 750,000. The most recent numbers we have, and these are estimates, but there are about 770,000 people died from AIDS in 2018. So this is from UNAIDS. So when I came across that, I didn't realize it was so high. And there's approximately 33 million people who have died from AIDS, and a bit more than that who are currently living with it today. And only about 62% have access to treatment. HIV and AIDS appeared, we think, around 1981. I was infected in 1985, and it was really about 1996 with something called protease inhibitors. I promise not to get into too much technical jargon, but a group of drugs called protease inhibitors that provided the first, I'll say, effective and real treatment. So in other words, there was a 15-year lag before there was treatment. Yes, there were at least 2 other drugs. And what I saw in Toronto in the 1980s, post 1985, was a lot of death. And I became convinced that the death was happening because of the drug treatments, which were drugs called AZT and DDI initially, more than or faster than the virus itself. After 5 years, by 1990, I had developed AIDS, and what that meant was that I had conditions that, including a very compromised immune system, that meant that I was, according to averages, that I had a very low life expectancy of duration, so maybe 2 years. And at that point, I'm having a conversation with my doctor, and I have tremendous fear. There was tremendous suffering. There was all kinds of grief, as well as a community response. But it was a crazy, crazy time. And there was a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. And my doctor insisted that the only way forward was to go on the treatment that was available at the time. And I had, in the moment, while I was sitting in his office, a sense that that wasn't going to be my choice, that that wasn't the way forward. And that's all I knew. So I left that day, and in fact, I never went back. I realized that I couldn't work with him, and for 4 years I didn't have a doctor. So if I wasn't going to take the very toxic treatment that I believed was killing my friends, what in fact was I going to do? So I was left with a situation where I had to be the hero of my own journey, the author of my own story. And I had to create for myself a map where none existed. And very few people supported that choice around me. I felt very alone in some ways, although I had very solid support of my partner at the time, and I began to find a network. For 4 years, I didn't have a doctor. I was able to access the healthcare system in Ontario, and I had various conditions, and I got treatment for those, and I carried on. One of the lessons that I learned was that there's diverse ways to think about health. There's diverse ways to look at any situation. And those aren't necessarily apparent depending on the culture and the context in which we live. I'm not sure that I stumbled, but I was certainly drawn to a program called Holistic Health that was offered by the AIDS Committee of Toronto in 1990 at that time. And what I learned there was that I am, as we all are, whole beings that are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so this single-minded kind of focus on the pathology of a virus was incredibly limited. And the idea that there were interventions that we could make in other parts of our life, in other parts of my life, for me was a huge boost. I felt incredibly empowered. I met some incredible people, not least of which was the facilitator. This was an intensive weekend journey, a workshop series. And at the end of it, he said, I think you'd make a good facilitator. Would you consider facilitating with me? And I had never facilitated anything in my life before. I'd never stood up in front of a room. And I said, I'm interested. That's all I said. We met, we talked, and in the next round, I was up there learning how to facilitate and teach. And then went on to develop a second tier program, went deeper into it. And from that basis of holistic health, which at the time was rooted in ideas like psychoneuroimmunology, which the mind-body connection, how we can exert a positive influence on our immune system. The real focus for me was building and strengthening my own immune system. The idea to take a very toxic treatment that would wage war, not just on the HIV virus, but also on my entire immune system. The very thing that I'm trying to boost was anathema to me. It didn't make any sense. And I had to separate myself from the collective thinking that was the way to go, to follow the doctor's orders. And one of the legacies for me and for a lot of people, greatly facilitated by the internet, is that we have access to other information. So I did a search and networked and got connected to practitioners. I tried everything. I was in this mode of experimentation. I think this is another aspect of reinvention. It's a giant experiment. It's something where we have a hypothesis or an idea and we research it and we try out part of it, and then we can scale it if that part works. And if it doesn't work, then we look and understand why it doesn't work, and then we can go on from there. So I love this notion of experimenting, because it does include that, you know, we might not hit the mark the first time or the second time, but we keep trying, and then there's a way to kind of play with this. So I met some amazing people, and I was able to connect them, and I was able to start other groups, and I was able to collect stories of people who began to see HIV and AIDS as a spiritual journey, and that was radical. There's so many things that come from facing our own mortality, facing death, and having to find our own way forward. I think it became a template for me for how I view the rest of my life. And some of the things that I learned through that journey, which continues to this day, are the importance of being fully dedicated to and having focus. And will is not enough. We have to understand with focus that we need to maintain focus, and that can be difficult because of all kinds of, if we think of the iceberg, all sorts of things that are underneath the surface, cultural beliefs, ways of thinking, how we were brought up, the collective consciousness around us, our own doubts, all sorts of things that may impact our ability to go the distance. And one of the things that I'd like to share with you is something that was really that gave me life, and I think gave me the underpinning and the possibility, in fact, of meeting this challenge. And that was a belief that I discovered came to me from my parents. And the belief was this, that I was responsible for everything that happened to me. Anything that was positive, anything that was quote unquote negative, all of it was a result of my effort. Now, that's a heavy thing for a kid, I can tell you. However, in the context of this challenge, it meant that I had to look internally. I had to look into myself to find the answers and find the way forward. I didn't look to a doctor. At the beginning, I didn't have one. In 1994, I met an amazing doctor and still have a relationship with him to this day, who agreed to work with me without taking the medications. I eventually, after 19 years, took antiretroviral treatment in 2004. So I waited for like 4th or 5th generation drugs. So all of these things that I was doing along the way, traditional Chinese medicine, all of the different acupuncture, naturopathy, homeopathy, complementary therapies, nutritional supplementation, building lean muscle mass, against the wasting. I mean, all of these things that I was doing, yoga, learning to breathe, the breath of life. Let's take a breath together. So in that breath is the stillness between the exhale and the inhale. And I learned to cultivate that as a place of serenity, as a place of anchor in a storm and in a very difficult time when there was death all around. And I learned and grew from so many people that another aspect of this is that, you know, in no way do we do our journey alone. It takes a village, and I found my village and nurtured my village, and I encourage you to do the same. I wish you well, and if there's anything that I can do to support you, please join me, connect with me at appreciativeheart.com, and I'm happy to take any questions in the time remaining.
So Duncan, thank you so much for sharing that very moving story. We've got all kinds of comments here about from people thanking you for sharing that story, and the importance of the breath has meant in their own lives, and how inspiring it is. I retained a couple of things. First of all, that reinvention is an iterative process, very much like what Julia said also. It's not a straight line. It's you know, you find something, you go back, you try something else, you go back, you refine it a little bit, and that focus is not necessarily, will is not enough to be able to focus. You need a lot around you as well to help you with that, and as you say, it takes a village. So surrounding yourself with the right people to support you also helps boost the immune system.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that in the context of COVID-19, I think it's useful to remember that that's another thing that we can do to promote the health of those that we love and ourselves, is to promote our own immune systems. I'd like to ask everyone again, just on closing, for the 1 to 10 level of confidence, to just do a quick check out now in terms of where you're at now. And so the question again is, how confident are you right now to make the change that you want to make with your reinvention dream or your reinvention idea? How confident are you from 1 to 10?
So we've got some more 9s and 10s coming here. 9, 8. Be
Thanks,
brave.
Ashley. Be brave.
Yeah.
There's lots of leadership qualities like courage and determination, and some of the things that people identified as strengths that emerged for them during these last few weeks during COVID-19 that all speak to leadership. We're all leaders in our world and in our circles and communities.
Right.
And
So
I wanted to share. Sorry, I was inspired by your talk, and of course, you know, we've limited the time for the stories, but certainly we could have listened to you tell us much more, I'm sure, about all your reinventions and your stories. I think what stood out for me is possibly something that our listeners and our attendees don't know about, is that Danielle and Duncan, you met through the Reinvention Society on Facebook, which is open to everybody. And there's a lot of people on the line right now that have joined our summit based on being connected through the society, the Reinvention Society on Facebook. So I think for me, that's a very deep connection that sparked your story to us to bring it to this summit. The connection that you are a Canadian living abroad, I think, is very important as well. Your story is definitely a global story, so important right now. And I thank you for your time and your journey and sharing that so vulnerably with us.
Well, you're welcome, Sonia, and thank you to everybody for for putting in your, for responding there with your scores, and appreciate your thoughts as well. And we'll look forward to Corey.
So before we move on to Corey, we actually have a question in the Q&A.
Right.
Absolutely.
Since you went away from initial medical recommendation, how has your successful journey been welcomed now by the general medical population?
Well, it's very interesting, because I had an opportunity to, with this doctor that I met in 1994, and I met him through my naturopath. They joined a practice together in Toronto, and I met him, and we worked together for several years, and he had a lot of difficulty at the beginning with me, because I wasn't ready to take the antiretrovirals that were available. Well, in 1994 there weren't any, but I mean the ones that came later. But he agreed to work with me. He agreed to work with me, and then several years later, we had an opportunity to sit on a panel together and talk about what it was like for him and for me to be in this kind of relationship where, you know, I was being a difficult patient, and it shows a great testimony, I think, to the ways in which the healthcare system were actually beyond our relationship. I think what people living with HIV and AIDS brought to their doctors, where we had to really study and learn, and part of that, of course, was finding each other, you know, and creating community. And I think that's something that certainly in Toronto, but I know this is replicated in other cities as well, certainly in larger ones, creating community to support people living with HIV and AIDS. And that's a wonderful legacy of that time.
Mm-hmm. Very important lesson in there. Thank you, Duncan.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
There's a lot of nice comments.
Yes. A lot of thank you for your inspirational story. And someone saying, yes, I am responsible for everything that happens to me. Yeah. It reminds me of William Henley's poem, Invictus. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Okay, no questions, but so many souvenirs, someone says. Yeah, a lot of us lived through those times, and I've lost friends.
Thanks for all your comments.
Yeah.
Thank you, and please join me at appreciativeheart.com. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Duncan.
Take care. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I see one more question here. So another question for you, Duncan. Was it intuition? How did you know what was right for you? That's a good question.
All I knew at the beginning was that I couldn't follow the people around me that were dying, and it wasn't an ego thing at all. There was tremendous sadness about that in some ways. That I knew that my story had a different ending, and in 1995, I had an opportunity to take part in an Indigenous healing ceremony of AIDS at the University of Michigan in Dearborn. And at that time, I was asked in the process of this like 8-hour extravaganza to make a commitment as part of my healing. And my commitment was to be of service, to be a positive difference in the lives of people. And I think that is ultimately the answer, is that there was another purpose for me. And I have to say that despite all the things that I did and who I became, there's still an element of magic or just this idea that we can, when we come to the branch in the road and we take a new turn, we reinvent ourselves, we are open to the universe supporting us in ways that we can't imagine.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. And yeah, we have comments saying beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, nice tie into reinvention.
Good question, good answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Duncan. All right. Are we ready? Take a breath. Are we ready to move on? How are you doing on your end on the technical side, Sonia? All right. Okay. So I would love now to welcome Corey Robertson to join us. Hi, Corey. Great to see you. Corey is a professional certified coach, and she's also a leading global expert on organizational culture, engagement, and retention in the tech industry, with a client list that includes companies in the Fortune 500. Corey has built a reputation for helping technical leaders understand people management in an quote-unquote engineering culture. She's also an entrepreneur and founder and CEO of the Coaching Academy for Leaders, which offers programs that are certified by the International Coach Federation. The Academy's unique proprietary method blends coaching competencies and leadership theory in a revolutionary way to help individuals and teams achieve high-level results. Today, Corey is going to be sharing with us how her core values have kept her on the right path. Corey, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me. And I just want to comment, Duncan and Julia, your stories, your words, you know, the way you tell your stories are so different, but I think the impact you have on us and the audience is the same, you know, extremely inspirational, and you give us confidence and you give us hope. So thank you for sharing your passion and showing us your power. That was really great. So what I want to do today is I want to share with you, you know, I used to tell the joke, I don't tell it so much anymore because I think people are bored of it, but I used to tell the joke that it took me 12 years to become an overnight success. And it's because that's how it felt. You know, I had been working and working and working so hard in my private practice, you know, making good choices and making bad choices. And all of a sudden, you know, and it really did happen in a span of a few months, my practice filled up. And I thought it was just a fluke, but it stayed full. And it's, you know, it's still to this day, you know, 3 years later, you know, yeah, there's been a little bit of a dip recently, but, you know, I can honestly say that, you know, it is the practice of my dreams. It's the business of my dreams. So how did I get there? So I say, you know, my core values kept me on the path. And at one point, probably, gosh, about, you know, 15 or more years ago, I sat down with some coaching colleagues and we came up with a formula, which we call the C3 principle. And that stands for clarity, choice, and commitment. And, you know, if you rewind the tapes on both Julia and Duncan's stories, you can hear elements of how the principle, you know, we've never met before, but their stories, their journeys really do pick up on, first of all, clarity. Where does clarity come from? How do you make these choices that turn out to be the choices that are your anchor during these times of reinvention? And that really comes from your core values. And we heard both Julia and Duncan mention their core values. What was driving them? What did they believe in? What did they care about? You know, what would they do if they were never to be paid for it? You know, those are your, you know, the signposts for you to discover what are your core values that are going to keep you on that path, on that journey, even through these times of reinvention. The second point is choice. So once you have the clarity around your values, then you can make your choices. You know what to say yes to, and you know what you have to say no to, and you know where and how to define your boundaries and how to protect your boundaries. And, you know, that part's not always easy, but it's so important because, you know, when you protect your boundaries and you say no to somebody, it means, you know, disappointing them a little bit, but it's so important, you know, because if you say you can't say no to some things, and you can't say yes to the things that really matter. And so finally, the point is commitment. So once you're able to very clearly feel great about the things that you are saying yes to and the things you're saying no to, the things you're following through with, that's your commitment. So my story, my story started, honestly, I remember being a little girl, in the backseat of my parents' car, and we'd be driving along the highway, and I'd look at these big buildings, these big companies, and I'd dream of what was going on in there, what it looked like, what it felt like to work. So I wanted to work since I was a little kid. That's always been with me, and that sort of fueled my passion, for education. It really took me well into my college years before I actually really connected with my academic passion. And it started with a course which I actually took by accident. Duncan, you had mentioned the word magic, and I think, yes, there is magic in the journey that sometimes we don't see right away, but it becomes obvious later. So this course that I took, I needed an elective to fit my schedule, and I was flipping through the book of courses. In those days, the older folks on the call will remember the courses were all listed in a booklet, right? And I was flipping through, and I came across this course, and it fit my schedule, and it fit the elective that I needed, and it was called The Psychology of Human Relations. Honest to goodness, I didn't really think it sounded very interesting, but it allowed me to have Fridays off because it fit in my schedule. So I enrolled for it. My goodness, in retrospect, that was the course that really defined my life and my career. So it turned out to be a really fascinating course on personal development and self-leadership, and interacting with other people and how to observe and understand others. And I dove so deeply into that course, I actually earned 100% in that class. And I had to speak with the people in the academic office, because they couldn't actually get 100% in the little box. It had room for up to 99, because it was so rare to get a grade like that. But it really touched my soul, that class. But interestingly, I didn't pursue psychology. I pursued communication studies because I wanted to go into journalism and media and broadcasting. So I moved on, I carried on in my course of studies, again, up and down, but always remembering, that the success in this class, it reminded me that I did have some, academic potential. So I graduated from communication studies. I absolutely loved that program, and I went back into the workforce, but that was during, the recession. And so I didn't get a job right away. I had to go back and become a waitress, which broke my heart, because I thought I had, finished those kinds of jobs, and I wanted to move on to the next phase of my career, but it wasn't time yet. So eventually I got into a job in advertising, which, suited me just fine at the time. And in this role in advertising, I was surprised, because I entered the workforce so keen and excited to, jump in and work hard and build my career. And I noticed that, the leadership was really not all that great. I actually became really unhappy, and I was so stressed out in that job. I actually got ulcers, and I had to go on medication to heal that. And it made me think, again, in retrospect, another piece of magic, it caused me grief at the time to be so unhappy in my first job. But now looking back, I saw the detrimental effect that bad leadership has on a workforce. How is it that so many people invest so much in their careers, so much in their educations to get ready for their careers, but then they get to work and it turns out to be something that makes them so unhappy? People want to work, right? People want a career. And you hear all this talk about the dream job. People are still believing that there is happiness at work, but the gap, I truly believe, is in leadership, which is a big part of the reason why I teach that now, and I teach, coaching as a leadership style. So I went from advertising to publishing, and then from publishing, I went on to events. So I too, Julia, like you, I was an event planner, and it was truly a great love of my life to have that career. babies came along after a couple of years of marriage, and my husband had the opportunity to take a role in England. So I decided that I would let my events career, I was going to try the stay-at-home mom thing, talk about reinventing. Although education and career had always been so important to me, I did think, okay, I'm gonna try being a stay-at-home mom. I'm gonna give it my all. So that was another invention and another reinvention, but it didn't last very long. So we got to the UK and got settled in our home, and I said, okay, I'm going back to my events business. To run a successful events business, you need a great network. When you're brand new in a new town, you don't have a great network. So I looked around and I saw in my community, it was a brand new development, that nobody had a great network. Nobody had any other, business community to tap into, because this was like a brand new buildup. So I thought, I'm going to make a network. I'm going to make a business network. So I went door to door. I printed out little strips of paper saying, if you're interested in joining a business network, call me. And I cut them up and I put my son in the pram, and I took this pile of little leaflets and put them in the mail slots of all my neighbors. And lo and behold, I had tapped into something that was wanted and something that was needed. It was a community. People were looking for community. People were looking for connection. So within 6 months, I was publishing a magazine, and I think, wow, how handy that I had, a job in publishing. I was selling advertising. Okay, so I had been in advertising, even though that job made me so unhappy, it paid off. And I started organizing trade shows and networking events and providing public speaking opportunities for my clients. So this whole career that I had up until now came together, and I called the network after the community we lived in, which is called Elvetham Heath. So it was the Elvetham Heath Business Network, which is quite a mouthful, but still very close to my heart. And I had about, all in all, if I factor in all the clients that were in my network from all the different marketing tactic modalities that I was offering, like the trade show and the magazine and the advertising and speaking, 3 of my clients were coaches. Now, coaching hadn't really caught on in Canada when the time I left. I hadn't really heard of coaching as a profession like this. I thought coaches were in the domain of sports. So I befriended 2 of these clients, and one of them he lent me his training material from Coach University. These 2 big binders, and I swear to goodness, I read them in an entire weekend. I brought them on Friday. I read them over the weekend, and Monday morning I enrolled for my coach certification training. Talk about reinvention, right? So I have really been through so many different kinds of careers, all leading, again, Duncan's word magic, all of these pieces holding me together in my career, and always remembering, what do I care about? What's important to me? What are my core values? Who am I as a person? And how do I live these values so that I can find my true potential? At the same time, by now I have a husband and I have a son, a little baby. And by the time I enrolled for that coaching program, I had another baby on the way. So family values became also very, very important signposts for helping me, stay clear. What are my values? How do I make choices that allow me to live my values to the fullest capacity? And then knowing those things allowed me to stay committed, knowing what to stick to, what to say no to, what to say yes to, when and how to, define and maybe even defend my boundaries. So I finished my first round, professional coaches, as Danielle knows, as many of you on the call, if you're coaches, it's a long journey. It's a lot of, it's a big commitment for lifelong learning and development as a coach. So I got back to Canada in 2006 after I had finished my first series of qualifications to become a coach, and I was ready to start my coaching practice. So I had been out of the workforce in Quebec for over 5 years, and I came back with 2 babies. My husband's career had continued, and he's now, traveling a lot and away a lot. And I think it's a great idea to start a brand new practice. So I sat down every day when the kids were at daycare. They were in daycare part-time, or when they were napping, I'd sit down at my desk with the yellow pages, and I would cold call my way through the yellow pages, calling local companies, asking them if they'd be willing to talk to me about coaching. Again, coaching still hadn't really caught on here in Quebec, so I was also sort of creating a market or being part of the first wave of coaches to bring coaching into the workplace, leadership development coaching, professional development. So, day after day, I would sit there with those yellow pages and make those cold calls. And eventually I started getting invitations to, accepting. People would let me meet with them and come in and sit down with them in their office over coffee and talk about coaching and leadership development and the benefits it could bring. And, at the time, my inspirational words around this practice was helping people transform their potential to performance. And, 12 years later, I became what I called, like I said at the beginning, an overnight success, where my practice was full. I was getting, people calling me back, people asking, inviting me to return into their organizations. I was surrounded by a beautiful community of collaborators and people that I could share business with, and people who could share projects with me. And, every single one I have, I honestly say, it's been so enriching and so rewarding, because when you have a role to play in the success of other people and helping others improve their lives and fulfill their dreams on their own terms, and that's one of the beauties of coaching, is coaches, we're not consultants, right? We're not advisors. We don't tell you what should make you happy, and we don't tell you how we think you should get there. We help you figure that out for yourself. And again, magic. You already know. You have everything in you to bring that C3 principle to life. The clarity around your values, the ability to make choices, and the strength and the inner fortitude to commit to those choices and stay with them, so that your dreams come true. And you hear my story, there's reinvention after reinvention after reinvention. So now we're all on the same playing field. Everybody has reinvented. So my coaching academy, which I had just launched just before COVID-19, all designed to be an in-person experiential course. Now, boom, no more of that. So everything that I thought made the course so unique now is going on to an online platform. And I'm actually quite excited about it. You know why? Because I have reinvented so many times, and I have actually, there's been, I had to break a sweat a couple of times. I shed a few tears. I got stressed out. Am I going to have the money I need to carry on, to continue investing in this? Like Julia was saying, when you have children and, you're investing in building a business, there's a part of you that says, wouldn't I be better off in that cash for life job? Wouldn't I be, serving my family better if I just got myself a job and went and did that work every day? But with that C3 principle, with that knowledge and the clarity, the choices and the commitment to those choices, you are doing the right thing for your family. You're doing the right thing for your business community and your friends and everybody who counts on you. So that is my story, and that's where I'd like to leave it right now. There's a few more minutes if anybody has any questions or any comments at this time. So thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share that with you. And you can find me at CoreyRobertson.com, and on my website you'll find my online calendar. So if you would like to book a call with me, because if you're like me, ideas come after the call, right? You know, later on when you're cooking dinner, or when you're doing garden tidy, ideas, you know, might come, things you want to talk about. So feel free to go to my scheduling app and book a virtual coffee with me, and it would be my pleasure to get on a call with you and chat about some of these ideas and how you can use this time of reinvention during, you know, this COVID-19 crisis to really find your C3 principle and, you know, transform your potential to performance. So thank you.
So Corey, thank you for that wonderful story. We're getting comments. People are relating to the path that you've taken. There are parallels with other people. Thank you. So wonderful. We're getting a beautiful also story. Haven't got any questions yet, but we're open to questions. What I really one of the things that I got out of this really is that reinvention is open to 100% of the people, 100% of the time. We are natural born reinventors. It's given to all of us. We don't have to innovate. We don't have to come up with brand new ideas. We take what we have. So there's a thread that went through, I think, all three speakers today with that. Around values, around choice, around commitment, around reinvention, around being able
Confidence
to,
too. Confidence.
And confidence, absolutely. So we do have a question here. So does community drive you today, and how does it affect your decisions?
Does community drive me, and how does it affect my decisions? So yes, I would say it absolutely does. You know, we often talk about, you know, work teams, you know, and use a lot of sports analogies, right? I like to change that up a little bit, and I like to talk about more like work communities. You know, if you think about the workplace, it's very much a community, right? Not everybody has the same role to play. However, everybody is essential to the happiness of the society within that organization. So my community includes my clients, my community includes my suppliers, and it includes my collaborators. I consider my collaborators like my colleagues, my peer workers. And in this community, we might not be on every single project every single time, but why would we be? Every project is unique and different. Every client has, you know, unique and different needs, and, you know, more or less need. So maybe we'll need 2 or 3 on a team, or maybe we'll need just 1. I also see my community as people, you know, there's been lots of mandates come my way where I've had to be really honest and say that looks like a really interesting mandate, but I'm not the right person for it. So my community of collaborators are people that I can go and share that with. And it makes me feel great to be able to share my work. And it also makes me feel great when I am thought of, when somebody thinks, hey, Corey, you know, I've got something that might be really interesting for you. So community is a huge part of the business world, you know, and if we think of it more as community and less of team, we think there's you know, competition is fun, but we're not against each other. We're with and for each other, right? And that's so much more powerful for everybody.
So I think just to follow up on that, Corey, thank you for that answer. I think that in today's world, and you know, during and post pandemic, collaboration is probably one of the key words. Another C.
Another C, yes.
Because competition will fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and you know, like competition it's a fun thing, right? And as coaches, and Danielle, you can back me on this. We know, and this is one of the things that we learned very on in our coaching mindset, is that not each piece of business is for me, right? I am one person. So I'm not, you know, Danielle's a professional coach. She's not my competitor. We're not competitors, we're colleagues. you know, and I want Danielle to succeed. I want Danielle to feel happy and thriving in her practice. So does that mean if we go, you know, out into the world and say we're both coaches, all of a sudden we're against each other? Not at all. Not at all. We're with and for each other.
And everybody has complementary skills. Yeah. And the beauty of the network is to be able to match those skills with people who need them.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, I'm so inspired. There's so many things going through my mind right now. We do have another question, but before we go to the question, I wanted to say, for me, all of your stories really highlighted some very important things about reinvention. One, you used your skill sets, right? Your strengths were used very clearly. Your values that you mentioned as well drove you. But I think your ability to make those connections and use them all together, based on the needs of coming back to community, you know, you realized, well, nobody in this community has anything, so they might have a need, and so you tested it out. You didn't stay at home, sort of wonder for about 6 months. I wonder if they have a need or not. You tested, and so reinvention is really about testing, having an idea and testing, and then you had the yellow pages. Right? And like you came back and you're like, that for me is very brave, right? So you tested, you had, and you just kept going. It's like, oh, kids are down. I'm going to take out my yellow pages and try some more. Perseverance, courage. And then slowly, of course, people started to take you up on your offer. So community needs, you know, all the things in reinvention is what we need today. Is, yeah, certainly we can stay in our pajamas and watch TV all day and you know, eat ice cream, right? But I think being inspired by our speakers today is really helped me a lot to say, you know what, I have a lot of ideas. Everybody has a ton of ideas. How can we persevere and have that confidence to actually test the market? Great. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So this is a very good question for you,
Yeah.
or as a coach, and I say that because so many of my clients are telling me the same thing, especially these days. I don't know, it seems to be coming out of the woodwork. So this question says, as a certified NLP coach, NLP, for those who don't know, neuro-linguistic programming, I have worked with more than 100 people. Though I have found great results, I often feel like a fraud in my work. Do you have any advice to surpass this feeling?
Well, that's an interesting question, because as a coach, I have to say, no, I don't have any advice for you. Coaches we don't really give advice. But I'd be really, really curious about, you know, you say that you've had lots of success with your clients, but you still feel like a fraud. And I'd like to challenge you on that a little bit, and, you know, look at it through the lens of the value that you brought your clients, you know, over 100 people, you know, and look at COVID-19, right? It says that COVID-19 is, you know, everybody who has it affects 3 people. So let's turn that around, that negative, and make it a positive. You have impacted 100 people directly through your coaching practice. Now imagine if those 100 people went home feeling happier, more at peace, more satisfied, more content, more powerful, whatever it was you gave to them, and they went and had a positive impact on 3 more people because of you, right? You did that. So how could that be fraud? Do you understand my question? Do you understand where I'm coming from on that? That's amazing. Your gift is incredible. 100 people and counting, I hope.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
there's lots of beautiful comments as well in the chat. Yeah. These conversations are inspiring and beautiful. Thank you. That was from Ashley. Marianne finally made it to the meeting. Welcome, Marianne. And Don says, thanks for sharing and how one course started a spark.
Yeah.
That one weekend. Yeah, wonderful.
It's that recognition, I think, that when you saw the content, it spoke to you. So there is that awareness also of understanding this is important to me. Just as Julia had that awareness that she couldn't continue what she was doing. And Duncan had the instinct, if you want to call it that, that the medical route was not the way to go. Right?
We have to listen to that. I think that's, Corey, your talk is about values, right? So if you haven't written down what your values are, that might be a first step, because that way when it happens, you'll know it and you're like, oh yeah, that is, and Julia mentioned it too in terms of the event planning, right? Like do whatever you would like to do for free, that's what you should do. So we have to sort of know ourselves basically. And so thank
trust,
you.
Sonia, and as Duncan was saying, and I think Julia was saying, and like my story with that course I took by accident,
Right.
in college, and that horrible boss I had in my first job, like when we have that clarity and those values and we trust those instincts, we don't always know in the time, why is this causing me pain and discomfort, or why am I here? This has got nothing to do with the career I want. If you're in that situation, just trust that it's going to teach you something, and keep digging for that lesson. Something might seem completely irrelevant, but eventually it'll come back and go, oh, now I see how that has served me.
Yeah, so I think community is great. We're coming back full circle around community, and I think it's time to bring the community.
I was just going to say,
go ahead.
All of the speakers together and see if there are any questions for the community. So Sonia, on your end?
I don't see any questions, but maybe we want to invite our next speaker, which is you. So everybody on the line, now is your turn to share your reinvention story. And you could certainly type it into the chat. I know last week we had one person, or I think one or two people type in their reinvention story in the chat. But if you want, I can bring you up and you can share your video and or just your audio. Just let us know by putting up your hand or letting us know in the chat or in the Q&A if you would like to share your reinvention story. And then I can see that all our panelists are still on the line. So if anybody does have any questions, you can certainly reach out to any of our panelists. And the panelists, please do share in the chat how we can get in touch with you if anybody wants to make a direct connection.
There's a message here.
Thank you, Ashley.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for being part of this today. Be careful how I sit. So there are questions, no takers, no one who would like to share their story or even a germ of a story. If you think that you have something that might eventually become a story and you just want to run some ideas by us, and this is a safe place.
Yeah. And the beauty of sharing your ideas is really to get feedback. So we've got a beautiful community on the line, and you can get some feedback. And Julia is sharing as well that any of our speakers, of course, everybody's on LinkedIn, so you can certainly reach out to them.
O'Grady is on LinkedIn, and her website is itmevents.ca, and she's sharing that she's also on all social media. We all have some of the challenges with different social media.
And so maybe as we're waiting for you to, maybe people are typing, maybe you're fixing your hair so that you can come on the video. But as you're pondering and considering sharing your reinvention seed or story or potential, one thing that Danielle and I have recently done to sort of get the juices going for Reinvention with Nadia Zeksambayeva, I think I said that okay, is to think about the last 12 months. So in the last 12 months, think about highlights. If you had to give somebody a highlight reel of the last 12 months, what would those mini stories be? And so you think about those 12 stories and you would write them down and circle them. I did this, it was very good. You circle them down. And then for each one of these highlights, you would identify some keywords, what made them highlights. And then interestingly enough, you'll look at the commonalities, and there will be commonalities because you're at the heart of all these highlights. And so what will come out for you are your strengths, your connection to all of these different events are you. And from that, you can come to see possibly your assets, and you would list those assets and then see, okay, well, what is the current need in our environment right now? And how can I bring those assets to life in the world today, to other people, to the community? And then I'll let that sit for a bit. If you're thinking about that and you would like to share anything at all that has come for you, even just to share your strengths, share your courage, share your inspiration, anything at all before we come to a close. And then of course we'll set up day 4. Day 4.
Day 2 this week.
Yes, day 4. Mary Tay.
I have a question. What is Duncan's website? He gave it a little bit further up. It's appreciativeheart.com. And then go to start. Appreciativeheart, HEART.com. And Corey says that her website is CoreyRobertson.com. She also has a Facebook page, Corey Robertson Alive from 9 to 5.
It's all in the chat, yes.
Yeah, it's all in the chat, and we are saving the chat. And this is a recording, so if you were registered for the summit, you will be getting a copy of the recording. Sonia already sent out
day 1 and day 2.
Day 1 and day 2. So you'll also be getting recording for day 3.
Yes. You could, of course, listen at your own leisure.
Absolutely. That's a great exercise, though, that you just described, Sonia, going through all of the successful things that you've done in the past 12 months and writing down the stories around those, and then culling from that all of the things that define who you are and what you're capable of. That's a really, really great beginning to understanding your own potential reinvention.
And that, for the person who asked the question earlier to Corey, you have 100 clients, what's that commonality with all of those 100? How have you brought them value?
Yeah.
And AJ says she's begun her reinvention story on PowerPoint and may be able to share it another time. Yay!
Cool.
Wonderful, AJ. That's wonderful.
Nice to hear that you started that. Wonderful. So what do you think, Sonia? If there are nobody who wants to share, do we have any closing words of wisdom?
I think Duncan does. He's sharing a proverb.
Oh.
Just when the caterpillar thought the world was ending, it turned into a butterfly.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. So when you think it's the end, I think it's just a common theme with our 3 speakers today. Danielle did an amazing job of putting everybody today in this category because I think that they all just worked so beautifully to share that, when you think it's the end of something, it's actually the start of something new.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I think that we do have some housekeeping possibly that we could
go
through in terms of tomorrow, what's coming up tomorrow.
Yes.
And in terms of community, Danielle and I met through Reinvention Society, and we both highly recommend joining that group. It's a great group where there's constant learning. Danielle and I are doing presentations coming up. In fact, they were announced today. So there's our group of 9 Reinvention certified practitioners will be giving some free lectures and engagement on Facebook Live in May. So all throughout the month of May, you've got 9 deliveries, presentations.
All really, really interesting subjects.
Really on reinvention.
On reinvention, but very different. So I think the first one starts a Thursday afternoon with Gary Graham, and then goes on until May 23rd.
With Danielle.
With me, I think I'm the last one. Deliberately the last one. So they're anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes Facebook Lives, and Facebook Live should be able to take questions from the audience as well. And you can, so it's Reinvention Society is the name of the group on Facebook. So if you want to go there and just take a look, you'll be able to see the schedule and the names of the topics of all of the talks. In terms of this Reinvention Summit, tomorrow is our last day. I had somebody ask me earlier this morning, do we think we're going to continue and do it every year, or I don't know. We haven't sat down to have that discussion, but certainly there's been some interest in definitely in sharing stories. Tomorrow is another really interesting day. We have something, I think, completely different. We're going to hear from somebody who is now living in Crete, in Greece, Gijs van Roelfen, who will be talking about his reinvention of YouTube. And he talks a lot about innovation, which we in the world of reinvention believe is very different from innovation. But it'll be interesting to see his twist on it. And then we're going to hear from Dave Hessidence, who has a very interesting reinvention story. Dave is in Ottawa, in Dunrobin, actually, just outside of Ottawa. And he went from a tech career to becoming a therapist. So that should be very interesting. And then we're going to move into the world of entrepreneurship and startups. We're going to hear from Rivers Corbett, who is in Moncton, who will be talking about his path of entrepreneurship. And we're going to end up with an interview with Philippe Telliot, who is the founder of the Montreal International Startup Festival, and hear about not just his reinventions over the years, but how he has actually reinvented the Startup Fest this year, even before the government, the Quebec government, decided to close down all of the festivals, the decision that he made to not hold a live event this July. So we're really looking forward to that. Hope to see you there in great numbers.
We do have a couple of, we have somebody who actually has a story. So Marianne has a story. I'm going to give her we're going to give her the floor, which is really exciting.
Cool.
And Julia and Duncan are reinventing this summit as we speak, which is wonderful. In fact, you know, this summit was supposed to be our launch, Reinvention Society Canada. We had planned to do a launch in May, and then we turned it virtual. And then, so according to Julia, we're then going to now convert it back to live. Live is wonderful, right? And I think there's benefits to both. So Julia, we have your number. We know where to find you.
No, I'm wondering if we can do a live, keeping distances, but film it so that people could see it virtually. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, that happens. People are doing that today, but I'm not sure how prevalent they are. Hybrid, exactly. Yeah, so I do know lots of people who are doing that. So AJ says, thank you so much for supercharging our pivot through these times. That was the intention. So, okay, Marianne, how would you like to share your story? Should I bring you up on video, or would you like to just share your audio? Let me know. Voice is good. Okay, Marianne. So I will turn on your microphone. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I missed last week's summit. I was quite busy at work and also missed like today's beginning part. And so my story may not be quite on point, but and on the theme or something, but I just really felt to share this because it's a specific, actually yesterday was a specific day for me. It was my landing anniversary in Canada. So 6-year anniversary, yes. And my reinvention story will actually is about immigration. So I applied to come to Canada in 2011. It took the process like 4 years for me to be able to land in Canada. And so I just want to share something about the whole experience, like how I felt at the beginning. I was so eager to come here, but then the process was too long. You sort of get discouraged, but then at the end, when I finally got my visa, there was a mixed feeling of excitement and also like fear, because it's a big change. And so I remember quite vividly that the last week before my departure, I was talking to my mom and saying that, I don't know, I'm not sure, do I really want to go? And my mom, I remember she said that like, you never know until you try. So go there. If you feel you don't like it, the door is always open, you can come back. But at least give it a try. You'll for sure know then. So I came here, I landed all by myself. I didn't know anybody. So it was a huge change. I thought I already knew everything about Canada. I had dug information. I knew everything. I watched movies. I have read a lot. But it's quite different, of course, from what you see in reality. So when I landed, it was like, I'm not saying it was a culture shock because it wasn't. I'm a quite flexible person, I guess. I can adapt easily. But finding your place and meeting new people, and you really need to really reinvent yourself to be able to adapt to the society, to new rules, new regulations, new culture. And it was a huge step for me, especially for the first year. You don't know like that many people, so you're all by yourself, and that was a huge experience. Just wanted shortly to describe it. I don't want to waste anybody else's time, so if they want to share. So yeah, that was it basically.
Tell us more, Miriam. Tell us more how you reinvented yourself after you slowly got into.
It's a step-by-step process. Like you cannot do it in on a day for sure. First of all, you get sort of this opportunity to attend these consultation sessions, which are to improve your French language. I knew French already, but I still wanted to improve it. So in those classes, you get to meet other people from other countries who are also trying to adapt. You hear their stories and you learn from them. That was a great opportunity. And then, of course, I was really fortunate enough to find a job fast. And then at work, you also meet new people, Canadians, non-Canadians, and you get to learn, you get to grow. Actually, I really grew. I feel that like after 6 years that I've been here, I'm a totally different person. I mean, I feel like every day I'm a different person for sure. But I have done a lot of things. Like I got my master's degree here. I have changed, I guess, 4 jobs. So yes, I try to grow. I try to, like, with every job I changed, I learned something new, and I had a new experience. So my career was in education. I was an English teacher. I changed and I became an instructional designer. So a lot of changes, a lot of reinventions happened to me.
Miriam, we have a question here.
Yes.
Duncan would like to know what you learned about yourself in the process.
That I am much stronger than I expected. And I knew that I could adapt easily, but I really believed in myself. I ended up like really believing in myself that I can overcome any situation. If you can overcome immigration, you can overcome anything.
So resilience is also a key factor of reinvention.
Yes, yeah. True.
Lovely.
And confidence too, right? You have a confidence to keep going.
That has been shaky recently, I guess. Well, some experiences also shake your confidence, but well, I think I managed.
Absolutely. We keep going.
Yes. Thank you, Duncan, for your comment.
Thank you, Marianne, for sharing. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you for bringing this opportunity. Thanks.
And I think, that's another thing that's really important that I see in my work with individuals, but also with teams, is that in sharing these ideas, it makes, it helps you connect the dots. In speaking, you're making the dots for somebody else, and new things come up for you you hadn't thought about or considered before. So whether it's with this community or whether it's with the people that you live with or work with or play with, highly recommend for you to share these kinds of stories of reinvention so that you can help identify your next pivot.
Wow, another amazing day at the Reinvention Summit. We'll have stories that we can tell our grandchildren.
Yes.
One day. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your stories, for being present, for asking your questions, for posting your comments. And we very much look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another exciting day at Reinvention Summit, Canada.
4 exciting speakers and a great end to our summit. Have a good rest of the day and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Duncan, I highly, yes, I love that. When we hear our story in our own voice, it affirms us in a deeper way. Absolutely.
Hi, Sonia. Just want to say hi, Sonia. Not your Sonia, the other Sonia.
Oh, okay. Thank you to our speakers today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing so openly with the community.
Yeah.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Take care.